What do people romanticize? But in reality, it's just not what they imagine. Growing food for a living / making a career in agriculture. As someone who's been a farmer as their job since 2011, I've made it work financially and lifestyle-wise, but it is hard work, dangerous, and doesn't pay well. Lots of people dream of leaving their career to be a farmer, but few people can actually survive it, make it a viable career, and ultimately thrive in the way people romanticize agrarian lifestyles. Just my 2 cents.
Farming is tough. I know a guy who left his office job to start growing crops. He thought it would be peaceful, but it's a grind. Long hours, unpredictable weather, and constant risks. It looked easy from the outside, but he had to learn the hard way. Now he gets by, but it isn't the dream he imagined. Just a reminder that what seems romantic often comes with its own challenges.
Tech/software jobs in damn near every Reddit job thread. I absolutely love the industry and have made a pretty good career for myself 10 years and so far. But the way it's described here many times is laughably inaccurate. Soft skills are still important. No one like a technical master, edgelord. Collaboration is inevitable. If you're putting in 2 to 4 hours per week max, you're not doing yourself any favors career-wise. Good management is still very important, and some tasks are still better in person, especially as you get to levels where you're planning.
I get where you're coming from. I've been in tech for a while too. It's not just about being good with code. You need to communicate and work with others. I've seen people struggle when they ignore the softer side of things. It really pays off to put in the work and build relationships. Plus, some things just work better when you're face to face, especially the bigger projects.
Being a bookseller. Sure, it's nice having books around you all the time, but I can't read at work and or talk about books with customers all the time. And even when you got time to talk, it's more like, what? You call yourself a bookseller without knowing insert author who wrote one book 300 years ago, and not sure, my dearest customer, I can recommend you that one book I loved, and you will love Oswell.
Being a bookseller sounds chill at first, but I guess it can get repetitive. You can't just read or have deep chats about books all day. It's like everyone expects you to know every obscure author. Instead of sharing your favorites, there's pressure to meet some standard. It'd be nice to have real conversations about what you love instead of just answering trivia. Makes you wonder why you wanted the job in the first place.
Marrying your high school sweetheart. Very cute idea when you're 16, but now every couple I know who've been together since high school seem very codependent. They've all for the most part followed the same rhythm of staying in our small hometown, having a kid very young, staying in the first job they got out of school, holidays to budget resorts once a year. I'm sure they're happy, but their world seems so small.
It's interesting to see how things turn out. I had a friend who married his high school girlfriend. They seemed perfect together back then. Now, they live in our hometown, have a kid, and stick to the same routine. I see them on social media, and while they look content, it feels like they missed out on a lot of experiences. Their life seems cozy but kind of limited. It makes you think about choices.
Owning a horse. We own 7, but have 11 in our care. Everyone always thinks we are so lucky. It's a privilege, but it's a fucking curse too. No days off. I work 7 days a week at our barn, and I work evenings outside the house. Rain, shine, hurricanes, bad weather, whatever, the horses come first. We don't get sick days, vacations, or more than a few hours away from the house. Horse gets hurt and a vet has to come out. Bare minimum, there's $500 to $1,000 gone. There are always breaking fences, stalls, or something else I have to fix or replace. Most people really don't want to own a horse. They want access to a horse someone else owns and cares for.
I get that. People see all the pretty photos and think having horses is just fun. But it's way more work than they realize. You're tied down every day, no breaks. It's about caring for them first, no matter what happens. and the expenses add up quick. Honestly, it's a big responsibility that most people wouldn't want to take on. They just want the cute moments without the grind.
Van life. I enjoy seeing the cool conversions people have done on those things. But actually living in one? Ugh. Saw some stupid van life family that had 5 kids in a converted tourbus. Single shower with a toilet in it on the midpoint of the stairs to the upper level, as that was the only place tall enough for it to fit. Kids each had a slot in a pair of triple-stacked bunk beds on either side of the upper hallway. Not even enough room to sit upright, and the only privacy a blanket strung across each one. And the kids were supposedly being homeschooled while they're out on the road. The entire time I was watching that, all I could think of was how soon would the kids go zero contact once they started hitting 18.
That van life family sounds intense. Living in such tight quarters with so many kids is a lot to handle. I get the appeal of adventure, but I wouldn't want to sacrifice comfort and space like that. It's interesting to think about how those kids will feel when they grow up. I can see them wanting their own space and maybe distancing themselves from those experiences.
Being a high earner / being a manager. Neither of these is easy. Both require a lot of understanding of multiple, often conflicting issues. But I see so many people who say, oh, it'd be great to earn £100,000 a year, not realizing the pressures the job brings, or that you likely don't get time to spend it or see your family much. Or being a manager is easy. You just tell people what to do. I could do that. No, you couldn't. You need to balance needs with resources, often work twice as hard as the employees, and take responsibility when it all falls apart. Oh, and you probably have a manager breathing down your neck too.
Yeah, I get it. A friend of mine thought being a manager would be a breeze. He used to joke about it until he got promoted. Suddenly, he was stressed about deadlines, juggling team issues, and dealing with upper management. His weekends vanished, and he realized that the paycheck didn't make up for the pressure. It's definitely not as easy as it looks from the outside.
The mythos behind the paleo diet. I mean, the diet itself is technically not a bad choice, especially compared to how most people are eating. But the romanticization part comes when they start lying about how Paleolithic humans lived. The versions of plants and animals that paleo diet people are eating today are not the same ones humans were eating in the past. And no, Paleolithic humans didn't have stress-free lives. If you think scavenging for food all day and having to worry about giant hyenas is stress-free, then I don't know what to tell you.
I get what you mean. It's funny how people romanticize the past. You hear folks say they want to live like cavemen, but they forget about the real challenges. My friend tried the diet for a few months, always talking about how natural it felt. But when I reminded him that survival back then was pretty rough, he just shrugged it off. Guess some truths are hard to swallow.
High-paying corporate jobs. It's not all boss babes and power suits. Depending on the industry, it's 90-hour weeks and no energy for life. I had the big window corner office, a condo on the 32nd floor on the Vegas Strip, car service / laundry service / cleaning service / housekeeper, and a closet full of designer shit. It was great that I was able to do certain things like take care of myself and my family, but that job literally sucked the life out of me. After 3 years, I was so depressed that I didn't get out of bed for 3 weeks and almost lost my job. That life is not what people make it out to be.
It's interesting how some people see high-paying jobs and think it's all good. I had a friend who went through something similar. He had everything, nice apartment, expensive clothes, the works. But he was always stressed and burned out. After a while, he realized that the money wasn't worth the toll on his health. He eventually left to find something that suited him better. Sometimes, it's just about balance.
Growing up, I couldn't wait to grow up. Now everything hurts. Getting married, marriage is hard work. Having kids, it never stops. It's a 24-hour-a-day, 7-day-a-week job on top of your day job. Weddings, expensive and unnecessary. Go to a courthouse. Owning homes, expensive and always needing repairs. Having a career, overhyped. You can have it all, but do you really want it? Having money just to give it away again. Helping others, they don't want it. Voting, does it even really matter? Drinking, it's gonna hurt tomorrow. Cooking, the mess afterward. Shopping, nothing fits. Everything is expensive.
Yeah, that resonates. Growing up seems like the goal, but then it hits you that adulting has its fair share of pain. Marriage can be a struggle, kids are nonstop, and everything costs way too much. It's a cycle of wanting more but realizing it's just added stress. Like you think money helps, but it just goes away. And all those commitments, like voting, feel pointless sometimes. Just a lot to manage.
I know this will sound very cliche, but I swear to God my university life is not at all like how others told me. I literally don't do anything outside of uni, nor do I hang out with friends afterwards, and maybe because I study medicine, but I literally do not have the energy or power to do anything social after uni is over, and the thought of it is just overwhelming for some reason.
I get that. University can be intense, especially with something like medicine. It takes so much focus and energy. I had a similar experience. Friends would always talk about late-night outings and parties, but I was just too tired. I preferred to rest or study. It's okay to not fit the stereotype. Prioritizing your well-being is important. Everyone's journey is unique, and that's fine.
Moving to another country. People think it's all about fun, meeting new people and starting over, which can be true, but there's the budget and the rent, different weather, lack of a support structure like friends or family. You're essentially on your own in a new place that may have different weather and or language from what you know. It's a lot.
I remember when a friend moved abroad. Everyone thought it would be exciting, but it wasn't easy. He struggled with adjusting to the new climate, finding a place to live, and learning a new language. The first few months were lonely. He missed his support system back home. It took time to build a new routine and make friends. It was a tough transition that most people don't see.
Living in Japan as a foreigner. There's a certain subset of people that really romanticize Japan and Japanese culture as highly advanced technologically and socially. It's not that Japan is actually particularly a bad place to live, but they still utilize antiquated technology, have dated social mores and brutal work-life balance, and are quite xenophobic and openly turn away foreigners from many services, even medical care. It's not some anime utopia where everything is perfect. It's quite a challenging place to live for foreigners. It seems Japan welcomes the visitor but does not always welcome the immigrant.
Living in Japan can be a mixed bag. Sure, there are cool tech and nice places, but the reality is different. People have this idealized view, thinking it's all perfect. In reality, dealing with old tech and strict social norms can be tough. Plus, as a foreigner, you can sometimes feel like an outsider. It's not the anime dream some imagine, but it's just life there.
Financial independence is one thing, but I don't understand why I should retire early, i.e., be unemployed, at 37 only to spend the rest of my days living like a third-world student. That's not financially independent. That's just being lazy and choosing to live on the soup kitchen. It's pretty sad, and for many people, by the time they reach FIRE, they are old and missed out on things, or still worry about not having enough.
I get it. The whole FIRE thing can seem a bit off. Striving for financial independence is great, but retiring early just to live frugally might not be ideal for everyone. I had a friend who chased that dream and ended up feeling stuck, missing out on life experiences. It's about finding balance, really. Enjoying life while being secure is more important than just hitting a number.
dating a 6 feet plus boy when you are under 5 feet 7. I done it and we got weird stares in public, and people made fun of us for looking so strange. People would say stuff like, "Is it your little sister / brother, etc., laugh at us and stuff. We were always the butt of the jokes, so it eventually made us feel really insecure.
It's interesting how people react to differences in relationships. That kind of situation can be tough. It's one thing to brace yourself for comments, but when it starts affecting your confidence, that's another. It's easy to laugh it off, but it can get old pretty fast. At the end of the day, what matters is how you feel about each other, not what others think.
One big one is living in a big city. Everyone talks about the excitement, the opportunities, the nightlife. But in reality, it's crowded, expensive, and often lonely. There's noise 24/7, apartments are small, and the whole dream city life can quickly turn into a stressful grind, with barely any space to breathe. People often forget the mundane parts of city life when they're imagining the adventure.
Yeah, city life can be overrated. You think it's all about cool spots and fun times, but really, it's just packed with people and noise. I remember when I first moved to a big city, I was excited. But then you realize it's just long commutes and cramped spaces. Sometimes, the reality of it all hits hard, and you start to miss the quiet simplicity of smaller places. It's not always what you expect.
Also, just the constant crises and instabilities in that life. I have some friends who work conventions and festivals, so the RV makes sense as a residence for about half the year, but they're basically always contending with the unforeseen. Not just vehicle issues, but things like flooded roads, weather emergencies, burglars at truck stops, not having a regular doctor or hospital, etc.
Sounds like a tough lifestyle. Living in an RV brings a lot of freedom, but the constant challenges can wear you down. I remember my friend did the same for a bit. They always had to be ready for anything, like when their RV broke down miles from nowhere. It's a unique way to live, but not for everyone. You learn to appreciate the small victories, I guess.
I was literally about to comment something similar. I've been living on a sailboat for nearly 5 years, and don't get me wrong, I love people's reactions, but they obviously only see the margaritas at sunset in the Keys when I tell them. Not the rolling around in choppy seas, squeezing in tight channels in the ICW, sweating for weeks on end, and struggling to get a real proper shower. Or eating nothing but ice pops and chips for 3 days straight, cause the conditions are just too bumpy to cook a proper meal, lol. It's a beautiful life, but one you have to work diligently for. Just extreme highs and lows.
It's interesting how people glamorize the sailboat life. I mean, they only see the fun moments but don't realize the hard parts. Living on a boat really has its challenges. Like, you can't just whip up a meal whenever you want. It's all about making do. Those highs and lows are part of the experience, but not everyone gets that. It takes commitment to really appreciate it.
I watch a mixed farm YouTube channel. She raises meat lambs. He does mixed grain, corn, soy, wheat. So often, they have days that start at 4 a.m. and end somewhere near midnight. 4 days or weeks on end. Watching them schedule their lives around lambing / spring planting / harvesting / general farm chores. Not for me, thank you. I deeply appreciate where my food comes from, but the sheer scale of unending work is daunting.
It's interesting how some people dedicate their lives to farming. I know a friend who tried it for a summer. He woke up super early and worked until dark. He thought it would be relaxing, but it turned out to be exhausting. He didn't last long. It made him appreciate food more, though. Just seeing the hard work behind every meal changed his perspective on what I guess we often take for granted.
I was raised in a farm. I find it hilarious too people who grew up in 5 to 6 digit cities / suburbs think it's all easy and fun, while we always had a roof over our head. We were fairly low class, you have to work every day. Oh, you're sick? Sorry, get up and feed the animals. Even if it's below zero with wind, it's dangerous. Even if you're not disabled, I have no idea how I'm alive, honestly. We've been harmed by our livestock. They're huge and strong. We had a goat who loved ramming into us. Equipment, chemicals, random holes that farms always have, you name it, and rabbits got into the crops. So now you have to cut out TV so you can pay the heating bill. And this was before streaming, so no TV meant no TV. Sometimes even had a pond, and my father would start before we went to school and wouldn't be done until sundown. On weekends, summers, and after school, farming, you had a rough day at school. Want to play some Xbox? Nah, Butters broke the fence, you gotta go fix that.
I get it. Growing up on a farm is a whole different vibe. People think they know hard work, but they haven't faced a goat charging at them. It's a constant grind, and there's no room for sick days. I mean, who wants to deal with rabbits ruining crops after class? The idea of downtime feels so distant when chores never stop. Sounds like your dad was always busy, just like that goat.
It's one of those things that benefits really well from economies of scale, which is why the tragic story of the small family farm getting bought out by the major land owner / conglomerate / business has been a regular and normal occurrence since industrialization 150 years ago. It's just more efficient to scale up. This means the big guys do it cheaper. This means your costs as a small farmer are higher for what you get out of it. This means you spend more money to produce less food. This means you need to charge more to offset the difference. This means your stuff costs more. This means consumers won't buy it. So you need something to justify the higher price. We're a local family farm. Sometimes does the trick, but not when the economy is down.
Yeah, I've seen that happen a lot. A friend of mine grew up on a small farm. His family worked hard, but as the land prices went up, they struggled against the bigger farms. They tried selling organic produce, but it didn't help much when people were looking for cheaper options. It's tough when your roots are in something that's slowly fading away. It feels like a losing battle sometimes.
We live on small acreage and have a moderate veggie garden. We grow things which are hard to get or expensive. Like zucchinis are expensive despite being easy to grow in the summer. We also live regionally, so everyone is growing something. It's not uncommon to have someone give you a kilo of cherries or a bag of lemons. That said, there is no way I would completely switch to that ideal homestead life.
Sounds like a chill setup with the garden. Those homegrown zucchinis must be nice, especially when you see how much they cost in the store. It's cool how everyone shares their harvest, too. The idea of living that full-on homestead life does have its appeal, but I get why you wouldn't want to commit to it completely. Sometimes it's just easier to enjoy the perks without going all in.
To add to this, of course things seem better when you were a kid. If you're the type of person who's going to make that kind of comment, you probably had a pretty decent childhood. You weren't worried about the cost of living or the economy or any other societal issues / state of the world. You were a kid.
Yeah, I get that. When you're a kid, everything feels more simple. You don't think about adult troubles like money or job stress. Just hanging out with friends, playing outside, and enjoying the moment. I remember those days, just having fun without a care. It's interesting how perspective changes with age. Sometimes I wish I could go back to just being a kid for a little while.
I think that there's been a massive trend in the past decade, likely exacerbated by social media, to have a mental illness, physical ailment, or some other malaise as a badge of courage. Sort of a look at me. I've got this struggle, and therefore I should be treated differently. It doesn't necessarily negate the reality or existence of the person's mental illness. But I have to say that constantly calling attention to one's own struggles seems to be self-defeating. It's different than someone saying, well, yes, I have this, but I'm seeking treatment.
It's interesting how people portray their struggles today. A friend of mine once shared his anxiety openly, not for sympathy but to normalize it. He would mention it casually in conversations, which made it easier for others to relate. But then you see others who seem to lean into their issues as a way to get attention. It feels off when it's more about the spotlight than actual healing. It's a fine line.
I was hoping this answer would be in this thread. I work in STEM, but not in tech. The sentiment/PR surrounding tech jobs is insanity as far as I'm concerned. Compared to a traditional engineering industry, tech industry jobs all sound like a paradise where you make 3x the money with 1/3 the work. I simply don't believe it. And if it is true, I don't believe it will last.
It's interesting how perceptions differ. I have a friend who transitioned from engineering to tech. Initially, they loved the environment and the pay, but after a year, they felt the pressure to constantly upskill. It wasn't the easy ride they anticipated. Now, they appreciate the stability of traditional jobs more, realizing that a good work-life balance is worth it, even if it means a lower salary.
The thing about talking about careers on Reddit is that pretty much everybody operates on the idea that the grass is always greener. Lately, it's been blue-collar jobs that have been glamorized. Truck drivers are all making six figures and totally aren't on the road 26 days a month. Plumbers and HVAC workers totally don't have to work insane overtime. Government jobs are super easy to get, and you can kick your feet up and barely work when you get one. The list goes on.
It's funny how people romanticize different careers. I have a friend who became a mechanic. Everyone thinks it's a chill job, but he's often stuck under cars, working late and dealing with upset customers. It's a grind. Meanwhile, folks fantasize about living that easy life in those jobs. Reality check: it's not all sunshine and rainbows. Most people are just trying to get by, no matter the job they choose.
Yes, this one. I work in tech, and yes, I have to physically have my hands on things to fix them sometimes. Also, getting your A+ is not going to get you some six-figure job right off the bat with no experience unless you've got some serious NEPO connections. This is a hard, stressful field. It is rewarding, but it's not all nap pods and boxes in the break room, and it takes some effort to get experience and get off the ground level.
I get that. Tech is not just about the certificates. I remember when a friend thought getting a basic certification would land him a dream job. He soon realized it was more about hands-on skills and networking. It's tough starting out, lots of late nights learning and fixing things. But once he got that experience, things slowly turned around. It's a grind, but worth it in the end.
I'm about to be year 3 of being on the road 4 to 5 days a week, and it's a damn grind. I sleep in a hotel bed more than my own. It's felt like I was drowning the first year. Frazzled, stressed, and just felt like a cat who was constantly being messed with. Once you learn to make it work for you, make your schedule, and give yourself stability, it changed everything. Also driving somewhere, then hitting the gym and showering, and then going to work changed it all for me.
I can relate to that feeling of being on the road so much. A friend of mine had a similar experience. He spent weeks at a time traveling for work and felt completely out of sorts. Eventually, he found a routine that helped. He started exercising regularly and made sure to find some downtime. It really helped him balance the grind of travel with maintaining his sanity. It can definitely make a difference.
Please consider subscribing if you enjoyed. Love.